Now, joining me to discuss the recent directive by Nigeria's central bank to MTN, asking MTN to refund $8.134 billion that was illegally repatriated by the telecoms firm, is the managing director of Arise News Channel, Ijeoma Nwogwugwu. Ijeoma, welcome to the morning show.
Thank you, Reuben.
Yeah, now, what is this all about? The central bank is saying one thing. MTN has already issued a statement defending itself, saying that it's always abided by regulations in Nigeria. Who knows what the banks, the indicted banks, will also say? What is the true story?
Well, I don't know the true story. I'm not part of the regulatory system, nor am I.
But you've been monitoring the story.
Yes,
you even wrote a front page story on it today.
Yes, I know. We did write a front page story. But what we do know about the situation is that this stretched back to as far back as 2016, when the Senate Committee on Telecommunications raised the alarm that MTN had been repatriating money illicitly through four Nigerian banks, through four banks registered in Nigeria. And they investigated the allegation at the time. All parties were called in by the Senate to come and make their case or to explain what might have transpired. And the Senate came out with a report basically absolving all the parties. But however, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, went ahead, last September exactly, to write to the central bank to still undertake its own investigation into the allegations that certificates of capital imputation were illegally issued to MTN to repatriate money to its parent company in Johannesburg. And it was on that basis the central bank conducted its own investigation, including the input, and this also included the input of a firm appointed by the Ministry of Justice to join the central bank in its own investigation. And then the central bank, also after carrying its own investigation, it still went ahead to meet with MTN and the banks to notify them of what it had discovered in order to give them a fair hearing. So MTN must have been aware that the central bank might wield the big stick, and that's what happened to
So when the MTN now issues a statement saying that there is no basis for the allegations by the CBN, is it possible that the CBN will make frivolous allegations?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this is a matter that would, the CBN must have investigated completely and thoroughly. It would not wield the regulatory big stick frivolously, because the CBN, of course, should know the impact of sanctioning or fining banks. It can impact on their shares. It can impact on their share prices. I mean, we do know that three of the banks, Citibank, Standard Chartered, and Stanbic IBTC. Okay, Citibank and Standard Chartered are not quoted on a stock exchange, but they are quoted on stock exchanges in the US and in the UK. So this kind of regulatory fine can impact on their share prices. For Stanbic IBTC, which is quoted here, or rather it's quoted, it's under its holding companies, which is quoted on Nigerian Stock Exchange and Diamond Bank. These are not the kind of stories investors would like to hear about.
Do you see the possibility of the indicted banks and also MTN complying with what the CBN has said? You recall that the last time MTN was indicted, it became a political matter, even involving the intervention of South African authorities. Well, do you think this will be politicized, as was the case previously?
Well, I don't know about government-to-government intervention. That's what you're talking about here. But I don't expect MTN to sit back and just accept that kind of order that it refunds. It's not a fine, it's an order that it refunds $8.134 billion. Because we need to put that into context. It goes to prove how large MTN's operations are in Nigeria. If it repatriated, you know, MTN has always been very quiet about how much money it makes in Nigeria and repatriates to its parent company in Johannesburg. But $8.134 billion over a 9-year period shows how lucrative its Nigerian operations are. Never forget that. Nigeria alone accounts for one-third of MTN's total revenue. That's the group. It has 54, as of March 2018, it had 54 million subscribers in Nigeria alone, accounting for 35% of total market share in Nigeria. So it shows, it goes, and it's with this monies that it has repatriated over a 9-year period that the MTN, the group, has used to expand its operations in other countries, particularly in Iran, which is another big market for MTN. So MTN, I don't expect, will sit back and would make a case to the CBN to see if perhaps the request that it refunds the $8.134 billion be turned into a fine that it can manage, because it's still, don't forget that even the last fine of 2015, which was actually $5.2 billion, was reduced to $3.2 billion, and it has not finished paying that. That impacted its financial position for 2016. It reported a loss in 2016 because of that Nigerian fine. And so it will not sit back. It is going to impact its operations. I can imagine right now on the Joburg Stock Exchange, it's, the share prices will probably be gyrating as a result of the news coming out of Nigeria.
There's a gray area in all of this that I don't seem to understand. I understand the banks being fined on the basis of violation of foreign exchange regulations. But the money, the central bank is saying the money should be refunded. Who owns the money? Is it not MTN that's the owner of the money? Shouldn't the punishment for MTN, if the case is properly established, be a fine, instead of saying you refund the money to the CBN?
Well, I think that is something that will be sorted out in the next few weeks and months. I'm sure even the Nigerian Communications Commission might step into the situation, because I do agree that whether we like it or not, these are dividends. These are monies that MTN made from investment. We should note that the $8.134 billion was made from an investment of just a little over $400 million between 2001 and 2006. So whether we like it or not, these are the profits MTN made in this country. It is under our laws, it is allowed to repatriate its dividends to its parent company. However, it must adhere, it must ensure that certificates of capital importation are duly issued, and they must be complied with.
Yeah, because the main issue really is that although the CBN had given approval in principle, it gave certain conditions. Without fulfilling those conditions, MTN and Standard Chartered started taking money out through certificates that were where the word used illegally issued. But okay, there are people who have said, why is it MTN all the time? Is there a possibility that there are other companies in Nigeria who are also taking money out, repatriating funds without going through due process?
Well, I'm sure, you know, the thing about being the big fish is that all attention, the spotlight is usually on you, so it's not unusual. We have other companies that have similar, they're under the same kind of pressure in Nigeria, such as Shell. Shell is also always in the spotlight for what we might call the wrong reasons. So sometimes when you're the biggest operator, the most dominant operator, the regulators tend to scrutinize you more closely. But I'm certain there's probably other multinationals that are in violation of our laws, the extant laws and regulations with respect to capital repatriation.
How strong is the threat of investor confidence being eroded? Because that's an issue that the MTN raised in their media statement.
Of course, and it also raised this in 2015 when the first fine was, when the fine was imposed. And so it's something that our regulators and authorities must always factor before they take certain decisions. The optics, in terms of looking very strong, might look good. We should also take into consideration the fact that capital is very fluid. If investors perceive Nigeria to be an environment that is not investor-friendly that could deter new investment in the country.
Well, thank you very much, Ijeoma, for offering your expert views on this issue. I'm sure it's a developing story, and we'll keep monitoring it, and you'll come back on the program and offer more insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Arise News analyst, Emmanuel Efene. He will join us with a review of the top stories in today's newspapers across the world. Stay with us.